Hey guys, hey, it's Heavy T here. I just wanted to read you guys something I kind of wrote a while back. It's kind of regarding the book I was writing, so I'm just going to kind of like just go right into it, and hopefully you guys can see it coming to life. Now, I wrote this in 2016, I believe, between 2015 and 2016, and you can see a lot of it's pretty much been coming true. So anyway, Prison X is the name of the book I was writing. Prison X is the ultimate controller to the grid. Yeah, we of the old world wait. Oh yeah, helped build it. Sometimes I must be careful when thinking because I still have trinary thinking capabilities. We of the awakened must always think in binary, or it will give our identities away to the AIs, and then they come for us. Anyway, yeah, every device, appliance, electric gadget, cell watch, and or earpiece, and even our pets are chipped and shut down the minute they suspect any human being of awakened descent behavior patterns. Oh, and they use it for punishment of various laws that have now been implemented in the grid as well. The Prison X is a state-of-the-art new virtual replica of the old Earth, but it also has many new features, laws, and controls that have been implemented to not just its creation, but to maintaining its global dominance and control in this realm. Basically, Prison X not only watches the GPS, store purchasing, and other common things human beings do in our lives, but reads your brain patterns and analyzes the frequencies in those patterns, making human slaves that are no longer capable of emotional thought anymore. No feelings of hope, happiness, sadness, restlessness, or jealousy. The awakened refer to them as puppets or humanobots. Oh, why? The puppets? Because they can be controlled in real time. Anytime Prison X is open for the elite or demons to have fun with them. How did it all start? Okay, you want to know my story from the beginning? I was a family man when the awakening began. You must remember it is a process, so it is a gradual unravel. Though the observers, the gang stalkers, or psychops foot soldiers know almost instantly and begin to implement the program to you immediately once anyone of them notice behavior that it correlates with. I guess it began to wear its ugly head sometime around 2012. There seemed to be a dramatic change in energy around me, a sense of knowing change, but not just knowing, it was living in it, almost as if the outside world had become the inside, and vice versa. The world began to have an uncanny synthetic energy to it, as if reality had shifted in time and space. My psychic energy and sensitivity was almost non-existent at first, like something had sucked that part of my psyche from my soul. After this, things began to unravel in steps, at least from what I can recall. The first thing that became apparent after the initial feeling of change in reality was that I had people that began to watch me and follow me when, where, and who I associated with. It was a constant 24/7 surveillance of everything I did, though they seemed to be from many walks of life, old, young, women, and men, also occasionally children. Around the same time, every device I owned had become another surveillance tool of these people's observations of me. Who was this that had begun such a stranglehold on my freedom? Soon every email going out became blocked. Emails also sent from friends and family were being monitored and blocked as well. Phone calls being redirected. Phone calls blocked from anyone who was a friend and not intermediate family member. They were now attempting to isolate me from people in my life. Yeah, and doing a very fine job, I must admit. Obviously, I wasn't the first rodeo, so to speak. The people responsible for hacking every device in my possession, I found out later, would also get into my friends' phones to make sure they were not communicating with me or anyone else. I knew about what was happening to me. This would be a guarantee to making my isolation permanent. They would also smear my reputation later, I found out, by spreading rumors and gossip about you being unstable. Also, where you work, they would start rumors of you being unstable, a threat, or a sexual deviant. One perpetrator who was not a citizen but a perpetrator of this campaign of torturous abuse said that I looked like a child molester to the co-workers around him. One happened to be a friend of mine. My friend told me what he had said. This campaign gets worse before it completely destroys every enjoyment of peace the individual can obtain in his or her life. Okay, the best way to describe it is if you had one picture of all hopes and loves in your life, and well, someone took it and smashed it onto the cement, shattering it into hundreds of pieces. It shatters you, taking away everything that makes you who you are. It can fuck a person up, I began to turn to what we called the internet back then to find answers, also to research what might be happening to me. I was not the only one. There were indeed other targeted individuals like me, trying desperately to keep the head above water without going under. Apparently reading more, the intent of this program is death. Or reading more into it, the intent of this program is death. Their goals are to get the TI to commit suicide or committed to a mental institution, to die there. Then listen here, because this was when it becomes, let me say, quite scary. They use RF energy weapons and EMF energy attacks till your physical body develops cancers and other diseases from the radiation used. Once a target becomes a mark, they are marked for death. Though the thing is, no one believes your story because the abuse is hidden and invisible to the onlooking observer. Leaving your story to the sound of mental illness. When they follow, they use more than one vehicle. So if it looks like anyone might suspect other vehicles, continue where the other turns off. They continue where the other turns off. No, this isn't all. Tell you something. They use technology not available to that day. They flew spy planes over my place every day for years. A drone followed me home more than once after leaving the bookstore. You see, I collected books, antiques. First editions is what I hunted. Anyway, I began book collecting after I was laid off for no apparent reason in 2013, though PrisonX was already operational by 2012. Wait, let me clarify. It started through what was called the system. However, it wouldn't quite have global dominance till 2021. PrisonX was established by the way of the system. The system got its name from the Matrix movie that came out several years before all this madness became this reality. Let me clarify something to you. We, the human beings, or gridsters, helped the fallen angels and our demons build this system. See, the black government had been cloning people since the 1930s. They also had figured out how to transfer consciousness through their experiments, recruiting the thousands of scientists after World War II. I believe this started under the name Project Paperclip. First, you need to understand, these scientists were into some pretty fucking evil shit. Wow, it still amazes us TIs to hear this. They were using demons they conjured from human sacrifice rituals. These demons would become invoked to become the molding of many of what you call mind control experiments. The American government would then experiment using the same techniques on their own citizens. This continued for many years. I want to say I believe it was like close to 15,000 of these Nazi scientists all through all this. They became very involved in energy weapons and EMF energies in order to fine-tune mind control as well. Okay, so anyway, in the mid-70s, a group of protesters broke into the government building and extracted a shitload of documents. In some of the documents, it contained full proof that a project called MKUltra, Operation Monarch, not only existed, but these documents contained the names of the universities, hospitals, and military bases where they actually took and experimented on them. The CIA, NIA, United States Navy, and FBI, to name a few, were all involved in these secret experiments. It soon became public knowledge and was later investigated and proven to be factual under the United States Church Committee. I believe in 1975. The problem was they stopped the projects under the names Project MKUltra, Project Monarch, and COINTELPRO, but continued these experiments under new names. You see, the money and the power was too much for our government to just end them. So they continued to experiment, but became a lot more secret about doing it. In fact, they used mind control and false subliminal messaging into the MKUltra name itself. An example, back in the 1990s or 1980s, till 2010 or so, if you ask anyone if they ever heard of MKUltra, the typical response was something like this. Wasn't that something to do with Vietnam and LSD? And yes, it did include one test among thousands to do with LSD, though LSD really was a very minute part of these programs. Although when LSD gets mentioned, your brain relates, making the brain not sense any validity to these facts. They also used some veterans from Vietnam as well, though most of the victims in these experiments were innocent American citizens with no idea of what was being done to them. The thing is, I never could possibly have imagined how far and evil our own government was either. You think I woke up for breakfast one day and said, our government is killing and experimenting on innocent people, and in the process of creating a virtual reality prison complex of the world to institute one world dominance using a mind-controlled global slavery agenda? Who wants to believe that about the government? you look to and pay money to in your taxes would be capable of such things. Most people want to believe their governments want to protect the people. However, everything has changed now. You can't cry over spilt milk. It's done. Too late. PrisonX has become what we thought was never possible. We helped build PrisonX, helping these demons and fallen angels, along with the puppets in the shadow government being controlled by them. Think about it. Every device we have bought after the year 2000 became usable by the system. In fact, by 2017, it was too late. Everything electronic and 80% of all homes across the U.S. were made to sync to one another, including the LED bulbs people bought, gave the system total control over their entire home. So you need to understand, if you were not moving in the direction they wanted, had in your possession books about freedom, copies of constitutions, made too many searches into the Illuminati on the net, or you were thinking of quitting your job for a major corporation that was paying you nearly nothing, they used it as becoming a dissident and would shut your life down with the flip of a switch. Your family would be so mind-controlled through the geoengineering of chemtrails along with the HAARP radio frequencies using local towers in your local area, they would throw you out or leave you blaming you for the whole punishment, not recognizing you really did nothing but failed to be controlled. PrisonX was designed and engineered near perfection. Oh yeah, and every room in your house is bugged through your devices. It hears and sees everything you do simultaneously with everyone else on the planet. When they talk of the New World Order and comparing it to the one eye, it is watching always. It is exactly that. In the Bible it talks of the end times referring to the beast. Well, PrisonX is that beast and has taken complete control over this world. I must say there are a couple of good factors, but it doesn't even come close to the bad. No more wars between countries, no more politics, no nuke standoffs, and little to no crime. However, we occasionally will, with help from a hacking group Anonymous, give them hell sometimes. The Awakened Anonymous have one goal in mind. Oh, you would like to know what that is? It's to wake the gridsters so they can help change the reality we currently sit oppressed and empty in. Most of our communication between the TIs or Awakened and Anonymous we do through telepathic mediums. You must understand, being awakened elevates your spiritual energy in this realm, though the mediums used are trained for only using binary telepathy. Anything trinary, using emotions with telepathy, risks the chance of being hijacked. So no, absolutely no emotions in the grid. It takes practice, but once you learn it, it becomes easier and easier to control. You see, it's the only chance we have right now. We must stop at nothing and wake the unawakened. Reality can be shifted again out of this realm if we can implore enough consciousness thought to change this reality. Therefore, if we can shift the planes while at the same time alter our perceptions, humanity may be able to move its realities and change this fucked up outcome. I'm getting tired of running and hiding all the time, paying restaurant gridsters, analog cameras, and analog tablets just to get something to eat. That's the key to pictures and staying off the PrisonX attention scale, you see. I found out towards the beginning that analog devices were the only safe means off the radar. Yeah, they can't infiltrate analog electronic devices, which makes them very difficult to find. Only a matter of time before they are completely gone, and then I starve. Come on, it's beginning to get dark. The curfew is 10 p.m. in the summer, meaning we have an hour to make it over to Blister's house. You will like Blister. He knows a lot about this realm. Also is the expert around TIs and EMF and energy weapon knowledge. Oh, one thing, though, try not to stare too much at his face. I mean, in 2016, he got caught and had to bunker down in his backyard storage shed. The gang stalkers roasted that poor son of a bitch for 10 minutes using an infrared laser energy weapon. Let's just say he don't look so good, but he still has a lot of charm, which helps still attract the ladies. Anyway, we better move. Don't have much time. Blister's house is exactly 1 hour away, and we still need to grab you a mag hat. We crossed the train tracks and caught the Zane train to McBluff's, which happens to be in downtown Denver on the south side. Though it got the nickname because of an old friend, McBluff, or Marcus by first, had a 3-day standoff with one medium by the name of Reagan and two 3-month-old gridsters, Landis and Caleb. One thing we finally realized here in PrisonX is your life begins upon awakening. It is like being reborn, but not to a world of pleasant futures. Reborn into a world that is completely under control. And then I got this other one I started. This is another chapter on the man who dared. Actually, I think I read that one. Let me get this other one here. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so I haven't read this one, I don't think. It seems like I'm missing a page here or something. The man who dared to see awakened suddenly, drenched in sweat and slightly shaken in confusion from another dark, horrifying nightmare. And the man who dared is like the Illuminati guy that goes into the future from the past and to try to help them save humanity, basically. From another dark, horrifying nightmare that continued to haunt his mind still. He cannot get the roar out of his mind, a roar from the darkness of this earth so evil and black that it once killed a man back in his childhood. He sat up quietly in his bed and began to sob slightly into his uplifted hands, a routine that had continued at least 3 to 4 days of each week, fracturing any relaxing, quiet, and soothing rest he craved so badly. The nightmare was never remembered fully, but was charaded with dark occult symbols, black cloaks, screams of terror, and pure evil, always ending abruptly with the roar of an ungodly beast here on this earth, but not of this realm. He reached upon the hotel's end table and grabbed his gold-plated Rolex and put it around his wrist, then pulled out the drawer below. A 9mm handgun lay on top of the stack of shirts. He took the handgun and laid it upon the bed next to him, while grabbing a silver polo shirt from underneath. After sliding the shirt over his head and shoulders, he then pulls the Samsonite travel case from beneath the bed, placing it upon the bed, opening it in order to pack his belongings. It was a day he had been waiting for, since his innocence had been stolen from him so long ago. His life had been filled with secrets of dark visions. These visions plagued and haunted him throughout his life, leaving him hollow and empty, without love and compassion. Though he had everything in material form, he could feel nothing in his spirit, and no matter what he did to try and fill this void inside him, by changing his daily routine, it always became nullified by darkness that seemed to be wrapped around him like a cold, dark, icy blanket. Though this day he felt would be different. This day would change everything forever. He had no concern left of dying, because just as those cold wind breezes came off the Rocky Mountains that day, it was as if he knew what needed to be done for all of mankind in order for it to survive. He was willing to sacrifice anything to bring the world some kind of peace and feeling of love once again. He knew the future was not yielding to direction of light and love. He knew it was darker than ever and intended to enslave all of mankind in order to serve his dark family's desires of total control. He then walked to the window and opened it slightly. After pulling the card and raising the blinds, the light of the morning blasted through the room, bringing in its display of day upon him. As he gazed out upon the distant mountains, the man who dared to see what was feeling its shine as the rising sun rays combed over his face and body, relieving his horrible nightmare from him. He looked at the sun rising, hitting the distant peaks with its brilliance, and it gave a calmness to him. A calmness that would stick with him and would carry his willingness to this task to the unyielding end, strengthening his inner self to become a beacon to this earth, not an intolerable memory of distant past. The man who dared to see was going to be the mortar of this rebuild of humanity. He would become the #1 factor in this plan to stop the complete destruction of our world. He was the #1 piece of the puzzle in order to change the horrifying future of mankind's existence and changing its past forever. He looked down at his watch. The watch reflected immensely the sun rays from the now open window off the sparkling diamonds which surrounded the golden-handed clock lying within. The time was 6:12, and he had just... I'm missing some pages there. That's weird. Somebody ripped them out. So that's all I have on that part of it. It looks like somebody ripped out pages of some of my book here. So that's real nice. I'm sure it was my wife doing it. I'm sure. Who knows? Anyway, I was gonna read a little bit more. Here we go. Okay, so he goes down to basically he leaves the place where he's at, his hotel, and he goes down and to this gas station. He wants to get something to eat. So I'll just start because this part of it's still here. Enough time to hit the gas station, swallow down some pancakes at the I-25 Loveland exit Waffle House, and then get back on I-25 South, making his rendezvous with Gunther and the brothers on 84th, which was about 15 minutes north of Denver in Thornton. He filled his travel bag, leaving out the change of clothes of his today, laying them on the bed. He then stripped down and turned the slightly rusted knob of the shower valve. He was basically thinking. I'm missing those pages. He was thinking about his day, what he had to do. So he was kind of talking about going down and getting something to eat at the Pancake House and stuff. And now he's getting into the shower. So he filled his travel bag, leaving out the change of clothes of his today, laying them on the bed. He then stripped down and turned the slightly rusted knob of the shower valve. As he got under the trickled spray of the showering water, kicking out the shower head above, he felt clean as it hit his body, though the clean of not just dirt and perspiration, but of his soul. He sludged under it with his palms against the still cold ceramic tile, envisioning the shower as the start of a new clean start. Maybe not in this lifetime, but a spiritual next that he had always dreamed of, filled with love, beauty, and great abundance of white light, filled joy, saturated by happiness. Remembering as a young boy when he had traveled with his parents to Europe, the awe he felt for the first time while inside the Sixtine Chapel, his wide open eyes in pure amazement while looking at the overwhelming brilliance of the painted art above him. Leonardo da Vinci made happiness come to life in front of him so long ago. However, the masterpiece of his endeavor seemed to capture and hold this energy to this day. It was the man who dared to seize first feeling of divine beauty and love that was felt inside him. It would also become his safe place when trauma-filled darkened nightmares engulfed his soul from within. The water soon became colder. Sorry. Sorry, I can't read anymore this time. There's just something about it. Anyway, I don't know if I'm going to put this out or not. Anyway, you guys, I'll read some more later when I can. You guys have yourself a good night. Peace.